A central premise of our work is that cultural enrichment and historic restoration can also be effective springboards for economic and for social progress. Rather than being a drain on fragile economies, as some once feared, investment in cultural legacies can be a powerful agent in improving the quality of human life. The impact of such projects can begin by diversifying local economies, expanding employment, and teaching new skills. And a continuing stream of visitors, properly guided and welcomed, can provide income streams far into the future, which can be further invested in economic growth.
Humankind has created extraordinary works. The legacy of our ancestors reminds us of the long road we have traveled as a civilization. It makes up our identity and nourishes our pride and our dignity as human beings. Dignity emerges when we improve people's lives, when we boost healthcare and education programs, when supporting individual and social projects, when favoring women's empowerment, when bringing electricity and water to homes, when rehabilitating cultural heritage or creating green parks in polluted urban areas. Delhi in India is the setting of major social and cultural rehabilitation projects, many of them led by the Aga Khan Development Network and its agencies. Thanks to these projects, the historical sites of Humayun's tomb, Sunda Nursery Gardens and Nizamuddin Basti have been revived, recovering a precious cultural heritage and improving the quality of life of its inhabitants. India is the planet's second giant after China. Its population is 1.3 billion, and it is the world's largest economy by volume as well as the fastest growing. But this growth has some imbalances, considering that part of the population lives in conditions of poverty, with low healthcare and education levels, and social and religious tensions. The fathers of the modern homeland, Tagore, Gandhi, and Nehru, would today proudly see how India, the world's biggest democracy, has found an important place in the concert of nations. But they would also note that the dreamt path to freedom, eliminating castes, violence, differences and suffering, is still a long road ahead. Despite its progress, the dreamt India of the country's forefathers is still under construction. The true origins of Delhi date back to ancient times and are lost in the mists of history. Various urban centers have merged together over the centuries, but what is today known as Old Delhi is the city that was built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in the 17th century. But today's New Delhi is one of the world's most populated metropolises, with almost 23 million inhabitants from all corners of the Indian subcontinent. Many languages are spoken in addition to Hindi, Punjabi and Urdu. A large majority of the population, 80%, follow the Hindu faith, while 12% are Muslims, and the rest are Sikhs, Jains, Christians, and followers of other faiths. In the streets of Chandni Chowk, one of Delhi's oldest and most popular market areas, origins and faiths intermingle without any apparent problems. This is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society whose streets are filled with color and life. It has always been like this for centuries.
Delhi was filled with migrants, and each migrant would take a look at the other migrant and say, "Who are you? Why are you here? How is it that the city of Delhi will ever prosper if rustics like you keep coming?" Decade after decade, century after century, these sentiments were echoed, and they're still talked about today. But now they fragment the city of Delhi. If you had a sense of the deep history of just that experience, that enriches all our lives.
But religious identity can be a cause for suspicion. If the Islamic faith is an element of national identity in Lahore in Pakistan, in Delhi and in India in general, it is that of the Hindu faith, despite its secular constitution. In recent years, the gradual exaltation of national identity citing homeland and religion has increased conflicts between communities. Nonetheless, Delhi still has a large Muslim presence. It owes some of its greatness to an Islamic cultural legacy that fused with local culture to usher in Indo-Islamic art. The world's tallest brick minaret, Qutub Minar, is an outstanding example of Islamic art that was built by Delhi's first Muslim ruler in the 12th century. The 14-meter diameter by 73-meter height of this imposing minaret displayed Islamic power in these lands, which had been imposed by blood and fire over local religions at various times during its history. The walls of a large mosque and other buildings constructed over previous Hindu and Jain temples have been conserved beside this minaret. The entire complex is today an archaeological site admired by tourists, regardless of its religious significance. The same goes for Delhi's most visited tourist attraction today, the Red Fort, the main residence of Mughal emperors for more than 200 years. Emperor Shah Jahan ordered its construction in 1638. The imposing red stone wall surrounding the fort is 2.4 kilometers long, and its height varies from between 18 and 33 meters. The complex has two monumental gates, Delhi and Lahore. Lahore Gate leads to a covered street bazaar selling tourist souvenirs. Further along, there is a huge landscaped esplanade housing several palaces and pavilions, interconnected by canals and water fountains. These buildings represent the pinnacle of Mughal architecture, with their mix of Persian, Timurid and Hindu construction traditions. The fort was pillaged and destroyed several times over the years as the empire declined, and was even converted into a military barracks. It was not until 2003 that it passed into the hands of the Archaeological Survey of India to ensure its conservation, and it is now a major source of tourist revenue for the city. Other important examples of the Mughal legacy in Delhi are the magnificent gardens of Sunda Nursery, 90 acres of nature and historic buildings that have been rehabilitated for the general public. Several World Heritage monuments can be found here, such as Sundarwala Burj, a small tomb located in the central axis of the gardens that has Quranic inscriptions on its inner walls, and an exquisite decoration of painted stars on the vault's plaster ceiling. The rehabilitation of this entire garden area has involved the restoration of not only these tombs, affected by years of neglect and destruction, but also the creation of canals, ponds and fountains, as well as the reintroduction of 300 floral species and dozens of plants and trees. The rehabilitation of Sunda Nursery, with the participation of public and private institutions, has given Delhi a green island in the middle of a sea of cement that is visited by thousands of people. Adjoining Sunda Nursery is another complex of historical buildings and gardens distinguished by a large tomb containing the second emperor of the Mughal dynasty, Humayun. The structure was ordered to be built by his son Akbar in the middle of the 16th century. It is a masterpiece created by architects, workers and artisans from throughout India. A big red sandstone building combined with white marble and crowned by a large white dome. It was a work that had never before been seen in the Islamic world and would serve as a model for later monumental works.
When it was built, it was far grander than anything seen anywhere in the Islamic world. And the early Mughal builders, Akbar and so on, took a lot of Indian elements into the building of this tomb. I mean, India already had 3,000 years of stone building traditions before Humayun's tomb was built.
The central building stands on a large square podium. The tomb's main room has an octagonal floor plan and is surrounded by chambers and corridors connecting with secondary rooms that house other tombs of figures from the time. A total of 150 members of the Mughal royal family, among them 5 more emperors, are buried throughout the structure, which is why it is popularly known as the dormitory of the Mughals. Humayun's tomb is much more flamboyant than that of his father Babur, the first Mughal emperor in Kabul. Not only did it inspire such later works as the Taj Mahal, it also initiated the tradition of Mughal rulers wanting to be buried in heavenly settings. In 1997, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of India's independence, the Aga Khan Development Network offered a rehabilitation project for this World Heritage Site involving public administrations and private contributors. Work in Humayun's tomb began in 2007 and was completed in 2013 after 6 years, with 200,000 workdays undertaken by hundreds of craftsmen, supervised by conservation architects, engineers, historians and other specialists, matching the standards of Mughal-era works of art. By work's end, the tomb and gardens have been brilliantly rescued from the darkness of oblivion. Rehabilitating all these monuments involves human and economic efforts that are sometimes called into question.
Someone may say, why are you spending so much money conserving and people are hungry, etc. I'm just saying that, so there are many contestations that we can talk about. But that aside, what I'm saying is that the conservation of these monuments are important because today it shows a very interesting part of our civilization, which is that we are a syncretic civilization. We had many influences, we had many inputs. All of them were synthesized, and we are today what we are because of that.
The Humayun Tomb and Sunda Nursery complex is located in an archaeological area very close to the sanctuary of the famous 14th century Sufi saint, Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, who has been venerated by tens of thousands of Muslim pilgrims from across Asia for 700 years. As soon as it was considered lucky to rest or be buried next to the tomb of this Sufi saint, both the court and the general populace continued to build here until it became the most densely populated medieval urban area in India. The complex, comprising the tombs of Nizamuddin Auliya and his disciple Amir Khusrau, as well as the mosque of Jamaat Khana, are still visited weekly by thousands of tourists and devout Muslims, more than 1 million people a year, exerting great pressure on this site. The conservation of the sanctuary has been the subject of ongoing restoration initiatives in recent years. By their side, the descendants of Nizamuddin Auliya and the religious community ensure the maintenance of the complex thanks mainly to donations.
It is the first conservation effort at any mosque which is in worship in India. And for us, that is a way of telling the Ummah, the Muslim community, that these heritage structures are also important for their heritage value and that they must respect what their original forefathers built for them and keep it in the best possible condition.
Nizamuddin Auliya was the most famous Sufi sage of his time in the entire Indian subcontinent. He advocated love and mysticism and believed that this was the authentic path to connect with God. And God's love implied loving humanity. His worldview was marked by a sense of goodness and religious pluralism. Nizamuddin and his disciple, the great poet Amir Khusrau, promoted tolerance and the mingling of cultures, and believed in the arts and music as a way to strengthen people's spirituality. Khusrau combined Persian poetic tradition with the oral literature of South Asia to introduce Sufi chants, Kabbali music, which has endured to this day as a genuine artistic expression throughout Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. Both sages would today lament the intolerance afflicting many Muslims around the world, where politics and religion are sowing endless conflicts. The heart of the old Nizamuddin district has more than 15,000 inhabitants, the vast majority of whom are Muslim families living here over several generations. These newly arrived families were immigrants who did not feel comfortable in their places of origin because of mistrust caused by their faith. They hope to find here the fraternity and stability required to rebuild their lives. But the neighborhood is densely populated, and the quality of life for its residents is relatively poor, with high rates of child malnutrition, lack of medical care and education, and serious problems in water sanitation. This situation has led to implementing a revitalization program that has already benefited 70% of residents in a short time.
There is malnutrition, there was high degrees of unemployment, there was, the cleanliness of the place was shameful, people were depressed, there was a drug problem. So yes, we could not possibly have chosen a more complicated area to work in. But over the last decade, consistent, persistent work has led to several of these parameters changing substantially.
Major improvements have also been made in medical care, which is the most demanded service by locals. Very important for them has been the opening of this modest yet efficient primary care medical centre that attends emergencies and offers maternal and childcare services.
इसमें हमारे कुछ टॉपिक्स हैं, जैसे कि मेंस्ट्रुएशन कैसे होता है, प्रेग्नेंट कैसे होती है, उसमें किन किन चीज़ों का हमें ध्यान रखना होता है, बच्चे की डिलीवरी होती है उसके बाद कैसे ध्यान रखते हैं, इम्यूनाइजेशन हो गया, बच्चों के साथ खेल खेलने का क्या महत्व है, ये सब टॉपिक्स हैं। तो हमने जच्चा बच्चा कार्यक्रम स्टार्ट किया। अब तक हमने 500 से 600 महिलाओं को उसमें जोड़ चुके हैं और लोगों को मतलब महिलाओं को अवेयर कर चुके हैं। उसको देखते हुए फिर महिलाओं ने हमें क्वेश्चंस किया कि जैसे आपने हमें जानकारी दी है तो हमारी लड़कियां हैं उनको भी तो जानकारी होनी चाहिए बहुत सी चीज़ों की।
Women's sexual health and the process of pregnancy and childbirth are still sensitive issues and need intense promotion. And many child deaths still occur due to malnutrition.
मैं आते हैं कि बच्चे मेरा कमज़ोर था तो यहाँ से जो है सो हमको जो है सो कार्यक्रम में जोड़ा गया, सारी बातें सिखाई, घर पे जा ये बच्चे का जो कार्यक्रम होता है उसमें मुझे जोड़ा गया। यहाँ बहुत सारी बातें सिखाई बताई और जो है सो घर पर भी जा कर के कहती थी और बोलते बच्चे को टीके लगा टाइम से बोलती थी जा कर के कि टीके लगवाओ, टीके लगवाते थे। बच्चा मेरा जो है सो बहुत कमज़ोर था तो यहाँ से खाना ना सब मिलता, नाश्ता खाना सब मिलता है। और हाँ अभी तो बच्चा ठीक है। फिर मुझे जो है सो 2 बच्चे थे तो उसको पेट में एक परेशानी था बच्चे को, तो बच्चा पैदा होने के बाद डेथ कर गया। ये बच्चा कमज़ोर था।
The medical center promotes vaccination and health education campaigns in a difficult social context due to many prejudices and the lack of economic and cultural resources of families. Moreover, hygiene is a crucial problem in a densely populated neighborhood, with thousands of pilgrims arriving daily from all over the country to visit the Dargah.
The environmental hygiene, the personal hygiene is a bit wanting in this area. So they are coming up again and again with these fungal infections. And we have patients coming from all over India. They come to beg over here. And so they don't have a proper house, they don't have a proper toilet. Pelvic inflammatory diseases are also very common because of there is a lack of hygiene and a little bit of promiscuity also over here. There is some amount of drugs also over here.
Improving the quality of life of the residents can also happen with small initiatives. For example, creating free public baths for locals and visitors. Many Nizamuddin Basti residents lack running water and toilets to wash themselves or attend to their needs at home. Access to public baths is an improvement that not only reassures them, but also restores their dignity. Schooling is also part of the multidisciplinary program to improve the quality of life and socio-economic expectations. But schooling for children is unfortunately rarely a priority among the poorest families. School absenteeism is very high, so extra efforts must be made to convince parents of the importance of attending school daily, as this will help them break out of the vicious circle of poverty and criminality.
जब हम उनके घर गए, बच्चों के माँ बाप से बात करी तो माँ बाप चाहते हैं, लेकिन कुछ माँ बाप ये चाहते हैं कि मतलब ये कहते हैं कि हमारे सामने ये परेशानियाँ, आर्थिक व्यवस्था जो है उनकी वो बहुत कमज़ोर है, तो वो ये कहते हैं कि हम तो काम पे चले जाते हैं, हम कैसे ध्यान दें, अगर हम काम पर नहीं जाएंगे तो हम खाएंगे कहाँ से। इस वजह से वो चाहते हुए भी सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाते, लेकिन वो ये चाहते हैं कि हमारे बच्चे पढ़ें। हम नहीं पढ़ पाए, लेकिन हमारे बच्चे पढ़ें, और वो चाहते हैं, हमें भी बोलते हैं।
Until very recently, employment levels in men and women of working age was very low. Vocational centres have therefore been set up to train people in trades with which they can earn a living. The Urban Renewal Project for the Nizamuddin Basti offers an opportunity for young people and women to learn new skills and increase their employability. One of these centres can be seen here and includes, among other things, sewing, cooking, and also printing workshops. Some of these workshops have been set up as companies to sell services and obtain revenues that benefit the students, providing them with a quick way to introduce themselves to the labour market. A computer centre has also been set up to provide training to young men and women wanting to master computer language and programs that are so necessary now to apply for many jobs.
Basically, what I think is the lady does management at its best. So what computer does manage the stuff. So ladies are more competent than the boys in that work because they know how to manage.
Are you agreeing?
No. I'm not agreeing.
The streets have also been repaved, houses in danger of collapse have been repaired, and projects have been launched to restore buildings of great historical value, such as the old tomb of a renowned minister of the Mughal Empire, Aga Khan. Another brilliant example is the already completed restoration project of the spectacular tomb of Aga Khan's son, Mirza Aziz Kokaltash. A square floor plan structure built entirely of marble, with 64 columns supporting 25 domed bays. The historical legacy of the Mughals in Nizamuddin Basti can be found not only in the tombs commemorating the powerful, but also in ancient houses and amazing medieval baolis, urban cisterns that were used as places for social gatherings and religious ceremonies, as well as providing drinking water to the local inhabitants. After removing deposits and garbage accumulated over 700 years, the stepwell has been restored and all its surrounding houses have been reinforced, returning it to its original appearance and social purpose. The rehabilitation has added value to the neighborhood and created wealth for the community.
It is not only a restoration of a monument, it's a restoration of a community. The Nizamuddin Basti has got a new life now. Otherwise, it was a neglected slum, completely ignored slum. Now it is a resurrected place. People are proud to live here. People are proud to work here. So that is a tremendous thing. Figures, I don't know. Monies, I don't know. But I do know that it has transformed the neighborhood.
Nizamuddin Basti rehabilitation has shown that social aid initiatives and conservation projects can and should be part of a single comprehensive process that can help to improve the life conditions of its inhabitants. The Friday Mosque in Delhi was built by the Mughals in the mid-17th century. More than 5,000 workers and artisans toiled to build and decorate these red stone and white marble walls. Today it is visited by thousands of Muslim faithful and tourists daily. It was originally called Masjid-i-Jahan Numa, the world-reflecting mosque, the mosque that dominates the view of the world, a flamboyant name in the imperial Islamic past of Delhi. Cultural heritage has the power to inspire. It can reveal a community, society or country at its best to itself and to the rest of the world.